Welcome into the Philly Hot Stove Show. Ricky Bottalico along with Connor Thomas on 97.5 The Fanatic and YouTube tonight, Connor.
Yes, sir.
We are big time, along with Austin Jones behind the glass. I just want to get this started because the best show ever, we were talking about a lot of things Phillies today. The one thing is really a lot of Phillies fans are not taken in by this team all of a sudden. And that to me is a little bit, it's not a disgrace, but to me it's kind of like a little bit of looking at Bryce Harper and saying, we're over this. I don't feel that way right now. I feel like, as a matter of fact, I think this team has a very good chance to go back to the playoffs and make a good run in the playoffs, if not get to that World Series. And I know it's the LA Dodgers. I know people are going to talk about that all the time. But you have to get over that and look at your own team, be able to look at your own team and say, I think they're good, or I think they're really good. What is your take been? You're on the morning show every day. What is your take been?
Yeah, the Phillies talk has been pretty quiet. The buzz isn't really there for the season as it should be. It feels like we're overlooking a really, really good baseball team here in Philadelphia. But in the same breath, I got to say, I can't blame the fan base in a way.
Why? That's what I'm getting to, but why?
With the postseason collapses and then also not building on to what and they couldn't, right? I understand that they were hampered by having big salaries already given out to the guys you
gave away. If you think about it, you look at the lineup, there's 5 guys in that lineup with multi-year contracts.
Right.
So
you couldn't do all that.
Can you blame
much.
John Middleton?
No.
Right.
And you can't really blame Dave Dombrowski all that much either, because the moves we liked at the time, bringing these players in, it's just hard for people to get excited about the same when they think nothing's changing.
And this is the third year of the same.
Exactly. Now, I think it's short-sighted considering how talented the same is. They won 95 games in the NL East last year.
Right.
So I can't fault the people who are worried about
their over-under is 90 this year?
Yeah, interesting. I think it's just because of the strength of the division.
I know, but I don't see this. We're going to get into it a little later, but I don't see that.
No.
And by the way, you were in spring training, correct?
I was down there for a couple days.
What did you get from the people down there? Is it...
Now, it's different down there because I think another part of this is the whole Eagles part of the equation.
Right.
That people are still caught up in the Super Bowl, free agency. The NFL kind of takes over the calendar. But down there, all they have is the Phillies, at least that they can watch in person, right? They're not walking to the link every day. So Philly, you get distracted by the other teams. People were fired up down in Clearwater. So there was a lot better buzz about the Phillies.
So the players are seeing something different than what is happening around Philadelphia.
But I'm sure they're hearing it because we already heard Nick Castellanos talk about how there's less talk about this team. There's less pressure on this team.
See, but I feel like it's been opposite. Like there is talk about the team. But
in a
it's
negative
not,
sense?
Yeah, it's not in a really positive way. It's not like we're sitting here going, oh, this team's... Well, I am. I have a... Oddly enough, I feel like weird because I'm on the other end of things right now. Usually I'm that pessimistic guy that always rips on the Phillies. I'm completely opposite here. I think this could be the year. I think they could come together in a sense that they probably know this is their last shot.
Oh, yeah. It's going to have to be the year. We talked with Jason Stark last time we did the show, and he was telling us about the article he put out on The Athletic, where arrow up, arrow down. He made a compelling case for both why the Phillies could be very competitive and why this could be heading in the wrong direction. And that's why they're Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That's what this team is, and it's tough to decide which side you want to root for.
You got to get back to some point. I mean, and I look at these veterans, and I say to myself, okay, what is going to happen here? You try to look in that crystal ball. Bryce Harper is going to be Bryce Harper.
Yeah, for sure.
Always has been since he's been here. I give him a lot of credit. JT Realmuto, a little bit of a question mark. Mm-hmm. And as to how many games he's actually going to play in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess there's 2 question marks that are sitting there. And you go to Trey Turner. Can he get back to who he was before he got here? That's what everybody's waiting for because I believe he may be the key factor. Mm-hmm. If he gets back to where he was, that 300 type hitter that could steal bases and uses his speed to the team's ability, I think that makes him a bigger threat on this team. And then, Nick Castellanos, can he lay off pitches? That's not who he is.
No,
he's not going to do it.
He's going to keep being the guy he is.
He's not going to do it, so I'm not going to look for it.
That shouldn't be his role. If Trey Turner is the guy that we believe he can be, he makes up for that. If Bryce Harper has an MVP caliber season or close to it, he makes up for that. And Nick Castellanos doesn't have to shoulder so much of the load. It's funny because Trey Turner had a sneaky good year last year.
Yeah, he
had
did.
295, hit over 20 homers. The problem is people get caught up with the defense and they think he stinks, and people get caught up with the the first year and they think he stinks. And you have to kind of Men in Black wipe your memory of Trey Turner and just say, okay, is he going to get more comfortable to be the player he was before he came here? I think this might be the year where we see the 300 plus from him.
Right. Okay. Now, to go into exactly what we're talking about, we've heard all spring, beginning of the spring. Now, mind you, there is just over a week left. Not even, because I think they have 6 more games.
Right.
Trey Turner was leading off. I look at yesterday's game. Trey Turner's batting second. What are your thoughts?
It doesn't bother me because there are a couple of reasons in this. One, it's spring training. It's very hard for me to take a huge dose out of spring training lineups and say maybe they wanted to get Schwarber more at bat, so they put him at 1. It seems like a minimal move.
I don't know how to look at it. I don't know. Topper, what are you doing to me?
I think part of it also is you need to have contingency, right? And when you look at what Trey Turner did in 14 opportunities at the leadoff spot in 2023, he was terrible.
Yeah.
And they had to make a change quickly. And if you have to do that again, you want to see what that looks like before the season starts. And the other thing with all of it is that you're in a situation where both of these guys are veteran players, Schwarber, Turner. Turner doesn't need to hit leadoff in spring training to prove he can hit leadoff for this team. He needs to hit leadoff in the regular damn season. Like, if he went out and was 4 for 4, no one's like, oh, he's great for the leadoff spot. It's still just spring ball. So if they do it the first 2 weeks of the season where they're flip-flopping, I lose my mind. Until then, we got to take deep breaths and just wait and see.
It blows my mind. What is going on? What direction we going in? All of a sudden, Topper's flip-flopping again, and he's throwing me off a little bit. And now I'm starting to say maybe I was right. Maybe because I said I didn't think it was going to go through the whole spring. And if this is the case, it's back to Schwarber again. We'll live with it. We'll die with it, just like we have since Kyle Schwarber has been here. And I don't think that's too bad. But what I really want to get into when we get back, because we got to hit a break, I want to talk a little bit with you, Connor, and we're going to have Jason Stark on at right around 6:40 this afternoon. But I want to get into fast starts, slow starts, and kind of things like that. And are they really that important?
Gotcha. I have thoughts for sure.
Oh, this ought to be good. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk just about that. We're going to talk about what we think the Phillies need to do. Get off to a good start, a hot start, somewhere in between. We'll talk a little bit more about that. This is the Philly Hot Stove on 97.5 The Fanatic and YouTube. Stay right here.
We want to hear from you. So
Fanatic.com.
Welcome back in. Philly Hot Stove, 97.5 The Fanatic, and on the YouTube channel. Rick Bottalico, Connor Thomas, and Austin Jones behind the glass. All right, Connor, I want to get into something because the Phillies were pretty good early on last year. Not in March. They were 1-2 in March. That was a series against the Braves.
That was a tough month for them.
It was a tough month. They were 1-2. They didn't play very well. But then April, May, they kind of opened it up. Even June, they opened it up a little bit. Started playing much better baseball. If you remember going into last year, all the talk was they have to get off to a better start. They have to get off to a better start. Well, they did. I want to get your opinion on what that meant to the Phillies.
Yeah, it was a confidence builder, and they talked all through spring training last year about having that chip on their shoulder coming out of the Diamondbacks' loss, right? This was they had to prove it that they were going to not let another opportunity go to waste. We know how the season ended, but they came in focused. They got off hot. They were one of the best teams in baseball for the first 3 months of the year, and that's all well and good. But ultimately, they didn't sustain it. Now, I don't think that these things are mutually exclusive. Like, I don't think a hot start means you're going to fall apart at the end of the year. And I don't think starting slow means you're going to get hot at the right time. So part of it was I think they got unlucky with some pitching staff injuries, and they fell apart. A bunch of guys slumped at the same time when you got into July and early August. If I'm honest.
That's the biggest problem to me is it seems like when they go in these losing streaks, it's everybody goes.
Which is crazy because that doesn't happen.
Well, The crazy part is this is why you build the team like this, so it won't happen like that. And then all of a sudden you see one guy go in the tank, next guy goes down with him, and then there's 4 guys. And you're like, how are they supposed to win these games? And all of a sudden you've turned a really, really good start into, okay, they're still okay start, but it caught up with them. I mean, when you look back, July, August, September last year, you know what the record was?
I don't.
40-38.
Oh, my,
They had a losing July, 10-14, 15-13 August, and a 15-11 September.
And that team, it's a miracle they didn't win 100 games.
How do you go 40-38 with the team that you had?
That talent and everything.
Isn't that what really concerns us more? The 40-38 team, not the team that started the season?
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? It's not 3 months for every team, but I guarantee if you look at the Dodgers last year, you pick out their worst month, it's probably close to 500, or maybe even on the number. You can't have it be extended like that, but there are going to be ups and downs of a season. That's just how baseball works. There is no science to how you get hot at the right time. It's not great for a Phillies fan for me to say this, but this is honestly the reality of where this team is right now. I don't really care if they start hot or not. I want to see them play good, consistent, repeatable baseball, and some days they'll get results from that, and some days they won't. But I'd rather see them play a more consistent approach game than anything. I don't want to see them, when they go into those struggles, have the whole team collapse or have them start swinging and their strikeout numbers go through the roof. I'd rather you win and lose playing your game, which I think they've gotten out of when they've gotten cold.
Just kind of take it as it comes.
Yeah.
And then I will say this much about this team. Unless they're in a deep slump, they're usually like, well, it's just one game. It's just one game. And that's how they take it. And it's kind of weird because sometimes we're more into the game than they are.
Yeah.
And especially playoffs. There's absolutely no doubt about it. You get fired up. You're watching the playoffs. All of a sudden they get destroyed. And you're like, uh-oh, what happened? What's wrong with this team? They don't look at it that way. They look at it as, all right, we lost yesterday. We got to win today.
Yeah, they do have a couple guys that press, though. The two number one guys offensively are Alec Boehm and Trey Turner. You can tell that they wear disappointment on their sleeves sometimes.
Yeah.
And that worries me a little bit, especially with Trey being one of the supposed leaders of the team.
And the thing about this year, though, it looks as though Trey is one of the guys that wants to put the pressure on himself.
Yeah.
He came into spring training saying he knows this is the year. This is the year that things have to turn around. This is they've given away way too many chances. I think he looks at the numbers. Mm-hmm. And he
all right over there?
I'm not.
He looks at the numbers and he
looks
worries
at the numbers and he sees JT, his contract running out, and even Castellanos running out, and Schwarber's is running out. What does that say to him? We're running out of time here.
Yeah, the Phillies window isn't closing because they do have a sneaky good top part of the farm system, and they're willing to spend money. But Trey Turner wants to win with the guys that he came here to play with. JT Realmuto, Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos. Those guys are tight. That's why the locker room's so good. And they want to win it for the guys that are going out. Like Bryce Harper's brought it up, how he talks about winning it with this era of Phillies baseball. Dave Dombrowski has mentioned it. Like the guys that he's brought in that are going to be his calling card, because he's not going to be here forever. He wants to win with the guys that he has.
And then he wants to go to Memphis and start that team up.
Yeah,
That's
which,
what he wants
listen,
to do.
you give us a ring, more power to you, Davey. But if they end this era without one, it's going to be a major disappointment.
But to me, I mean, as players get older, you know they're going to go one way or the other. Which way is this team going to go right now is really the question. I mean, is Castellanos going to go backwards? Is JT going backwards? Is Schwarber? Which way are they going? I mean, and there's been talk of like giving Schwarber and JT a couple more years. I don't think that's a good idea right now.
Yeah, JT maybe, because I don't know if you have a definitive option behind JT that's major league ready to catch 130 games. Like, we'll see what Marshawn has this year, because I do believe he's going to be the backup for the team just because Garrett Stubbs still has an option. If Marshawn goes out and in the 40 or 60-some games he gets an opportunity to play in, shows he can be a major league hitter, then okay, I'm good with moving on from Realmuto.
Right.
But, like, you can find a DH. Not a Kyle Schwarber guy, but you can find someone who can go in there and just DH.
Right.
Catcher's going to be tough to replace to the level that JT plays it.
Right. But, I mean, I think that's only going to be told to see how many games he catches this year.
Exactly.
Which we still don't know how many they have decided on. We don't know what that means for Stubbs and or Marshawn right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, we're going to find out in a week. That's
Dude,
for
age
sure.
could kill this team. Like, that is probably, we're going to talk about the teams in the NL East that scare us
You don't
later
want to
on.
get back to that point.
Yeah.
We've been there with the Phillies when it was Ryan Howard and them. I hope they don't make the choices that they made back then.
Yeah.
I know. I actually talked to Ed Wade this past weekend, and the one thing he said is like, well, the new 34 is now 37, and I'm like, oh boy, that scared me a little bit when
Well,
he said that.
hey, if it plays out, if 32 is now 34 or 32 is 30 or whatever, like, then you're feeling good.
Well, you
So,
hope it could play out that way, but there still is a question mark. Isn't
there is. But for all the players aging, you know what's funny? I had this realization the other day talking about the aging players, and Bryce Harper is kind of the face of that age group in the locker room. Remember, Tommy John, 2 years ago, this would be his third year removed. What do we say about pitchers that get Tommy John? They take the 1 year for recovery. The second year is kind of a work back.
And then
the third year is the year where you see them back to themselves. Do you think that applies to a hitter where we see
I don't know.
MVP caliber Bryce Harper this year?
I get
Because
I'm
if he
trying
comes
to
out
think
and
with
hits 40
Shohei. Shohei's had it.
Yeah. Now, Shohei's a monster. Like, he may not apply to the rule.
He may
because-
not apply, but Bryce Harper does. Yeah.
I wonder if we see the Bryce Harper that we got back in his MVP season. Here.
You brought up the NL East, so we're going to talk NL East when we get back. This hour is brought to you by Family and Company Jewelers. Visit them on Route 70 in Marlton, New Jersey, or at FamilyJewelers.com. South Jersey's diamond destination. This is the Philly Hot Stove Show, 97.5 The Fanatic, and YouTube. Stay right here.
Fanatic. Update in Eagles all. It is a bittersweet day as Eagles defensive end Brandon Graham is hanging up his cleats. One thing Brandon Graham wants people to take away from his story is the following.
What I want them to take from this is not how you start, it's how you finish. And so for me, if you get another opportunity, whatever that opportunity is, run with it. And don't look down on it just because it might not be the opportunity or everything you dreamed about in your mind.
Thank you, BG, for all you've done for the city and, of course, for the Eagles. Rob Thompson has announced that the starting pitcher on opening day will be Zach Wheeler. This will be his second consecutive opening day nod. Both the 76ers and Flyers lost last night. The Sixers will face the Pelicans Wednesday night at 8 p.m. You can listen to that game on 97.5 The Fanatic. And the Flyers take on the Washington Capitals in D.C. The game is set for 7 p.m. and you can listen to that game on 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Austin Jones at home of the 76ers and Flyers, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com. Feel it.
97.5. Baseball is in the air, and we are getting you ready. Right now, more of the Philly Hot Stove Show on 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Welcome back in, Philly Hot Stove. It is getting hot. We're getting closer to baseball. I hope fans around the Delaware Valley are starting to grip into this, because this is going to be a good baseball team. And you know what? Without the fan base, it doesn't feel the same. And I feel like some people have kind of fallen off of the bandwagon early on this year. I don't like it.
I don't like it either. Now, I'm also not a we won't welcome you back guy. Like, I know that people are going to come around when they see this team play. I think part of it was the offseason was so underwhelming compared to previous offseasons. This was the second year, where they didn't make like a monster move in the offseason. And when you do the same thing twice, people get tired of it. But once you see Zach Wheeler take the rubber, people are going to be back.
I think it's going to change in a hurry, and 100% with you. I want to start with this. Let's start with the National League East. Okay, so basically we're talking Phillies, Mets, and Braves.
Yeah, Marlins stake. The Nationals may be interesting to watch, but they're not good.
The Marlins are the Marlins.
Yeah.
You know what? That team should move. I've said it. I've said it before. You're sitting down there, and it's kind of like a wasteland.
But all
you go
7 fans will be upset if they move out
all
of Miami.
All 7 fans. It's blue seat giveaway day every time you play down there. Anyways, let's start with this team up in Flushing, New York. Okay? The Mets. Do we all agree that they have a pretty good offense?
Yeah, great lineup.
I have nothing against their lineup. I mean, with Lindor, Juan Soto, Alonso, even Nimmo,
Vientos.
These guys are pretty good.
Yeah.
But I would mix and match my lineup, the Phillies lineup, right with them.
Yeah, absolutely. The Phillies can go toe-to-toe with any lineup in baseball not named the Dodgers.
All right, now let's go to their bullpen. Their setup guys, their 6th, 7th inning guys, you name it, all the way across. And it's from like Ryan Sanek, Garrett, Butto, remember him?
Yeah.
And Edwin Diaz.
Edwin Diaz is good.
Now, and they have A.J. Minter.
Yeah.
So now they have a 1-2 punch in the bullpen.
Right.
Edwin Diaz has not looked very good against Phillies the last couple times we've seen him.
No, he's struggled.
Even in that finished game last year, the Phillies had an opportunity to come out on top of that game. Mm-hmm. And to me, I think they have started getting his number a little bit. Doesn't throw strikes with his fastball, and it's been shown. It's been shown, and he knows that the Phillies know it now.
Yeah, and he's their best reliever. Like, A.J. Minter is a nice acquisition by them, but you've got familiarity with Minter, been in the division for a while. So, like, you're looking at a couple guys up there that you feel comfortable with facing, even though they're good arms.
But pretty fair to say they have 2 arms in the bullpen, and the rest are manageable for the Phillies.
And that might be the amount of arms they have in the rotation.
Okay, now you look at the rotation. Okay, Kodai Senga.
Nice player.
Nice player. I'll put him up against Zach Wheeler. Okay.
I'm taking Wheeler 10 times out of 10.
That's my whole point. He's their number 1 right now. Their number 2 is Manaea. He is out.
Yeah.
He's out. Frankie Montas, guess where he is?
Also out.
He's also out. Number 4, Clay Holmes, and Tyler McGill.
Yeah.
So those guys move up to 3-4.
Yeah, Tyler McGill was the guy that you'd see on a Sunday where
Excuse me, 2-3.
Yeah, where you were having like the Sunday give-up lineup, and you're like, we're still going to get 4 runs off this guy.
Yeah, to me, it's just unbelievable what has happened to this Mets rotation. It's not very good right now.
And they had
I got a call today. I got a text today on the best show ever. Some dude called in and said the Mets are so much better than the Phillies. Did you take a look at your starting rotation?
No, that's a guy who saw the Juan Soto move and know the Mets won the series last year.
Oh, look, Juan Soto, we're winning everything.
They're way better. No, they're not. Their rotation is not going to hold up through June. They're going to hit 40 home runs to a man through their
Watch this. I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
The Yankees last year with Juan Soto or the Mets this year with Juan Soto, better team?
I'd go with the Yankees last year.
And how'd they do?
They lost in the World Series.
That's what I thought.
And they weren't too competitive in that series either.
Now let's move on. I think we've proven our point with the New York Mets.
Yeah, I'm taking the Phillies. The lineup is great, but the pitching staff doesn't hold water.
I think the Mets lineup is really good. I think the Phillies match up hitting wise with them. Like I would do a full matchup with them, and I think they'd be all right. All right. Now you go over to Atlanta Braves. Ronald Acuna Jr. is out to start the season. You don't know how he's going to come back from that knee injury anyways.
Right.
He's already come back from one. This is his second one.
It's going to be tough to do.
Guy uses his speed. Could be questionable, right? Sean Murphy, out.
Fastball to the ribs. He's going to miss a little bit of time to start the year. Yeah.
This is unbelievable because then you go to the Atlanta Braves starters. Chris Sale, okay. He won the Cy Young somehow last year over
Zach Wheeler. Now, he had an unbelievable year, but Chris Sale is a guy that he hasn't been able to stay healthy.
He's been peaks and valleys.
Also old. You seen that guy's beard, man?
Yeah.
It's gray as anything.
So you got to wonder, is he going to go back down in that hole this year?
Got to believe at least a step back.
At least a step back. Spencer Strider out to start the year.
Yeah, and he's coming off a major injury.
Major injury. Don't know when you're getting him back. I like their third. I like Ronaldo Lopez.
Oh, Lopez is good.
Yeah. And then Schwellenbach and Grant Holmes. Holmes doesn't scare me. Schwellenbach could be good.
He's got a little something. Schwellenbach's the guy to watch in that rotation for potential upside. But even that, like, we're talking ourselves into why these guys could have good years to potentially, mirror the Phillies 3, 4, 5 guys?
Yeah.
The Phillies are head and shoulders above every rotation in baseball.
See, that's why I think. All right, Phillies, they're saying 90 wins this year. I'm definitely saying over. Mm-hmm. I think they may go over 95 of last year.
Yeah.
I really do. I think they're going to be better than that. And I think a lot of it has to do with where the Mets and Braves are in the first 2 months of the season.
Yeah.
I think the Phillies could overload them in the first 2 months, and that could be a rough go for them. But just to add on, Iglesias is Raciel Iglesias, closer for the Braves. Mm-hmm. Not bad.
No.
He seemed a little tense against the Phillies at times last year.
Right. They lost Jesse Chavez, who they're going to get back at the trade deadline.
I'm getting to a good point here.
Oh, okay. My fault.
Getting to a good point. Now, there's 2 former Phillies in their bullpen right now.
Who? This is not coming to me. Who is it?
Both right-handers. I'll give you one. Enyel De Los Santos.
Oh, yeah. Forget Enyel. No, I'm
the
not
other one actually dealt when he was with the Phillies. Was really good as a closer.
As a closer. Do they have Hector now?
They have Hector Neris.
I didn't even see that they got Hector.
So, do you see what's going on here? They have gotten guys that were on the Phillies 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
During that time period that we don't like to bring up.
One of the worst bullpens in the history of baseball for
one
a
of
little
the
bit
worst in the history of baseball, and they've made their way to the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a problem for them. Like, they're going to have to hope that Chris Sale is Superman again. They're going to have to hope that Strider's healthy. They're going to have to hope position players are healthy. Schwellenbach takes a big step. Like, you don't have to talk yourself into the Phillies rotation at all. They are just flat out good. And that is a major advantage in this division. That's going to be what wins the NL East for the Philadelphia Phillies. If they're on top of this division again, you're going to point to those 5 guys that were starting for them and say, you're the reason we're here.
Guess who just signed a minor league deal?
Who?
For the Braves. Another former Philly.
Pitcher?
Right-hander.
Who is still out there?
Who is still out there just from a couple years ago?
I don't have it.
Craig Kimbrell.
Stop it. He's going back to Atlanta?
Well, minor league deal, who knows what that could mean.
I hope they put him on the major league
with
roster.
these older guys, it could go any way you want it to go. But, okay, so how do you match up? Where do you look at the end of it is the last day of the season, who's where?
I think that the Phillies have a really good shot to win this division again. I don't know if the Braves can stay healthy because they have some guys that have had major injuries. I think it's tight, though. So if the Phils win 94 games, I think the Braves might be right at 92. Like, I think it's coming down to the final day. I think the Mets are going to be that one step back team this year, even with Soto, where we're looking at 87, 88 wins.
See, I think we're going in the same direction. I think we got 1, 2, 3 down. I think it's going to be the Phillies. Then the Braves, and then the Mets. I don't know how the Mets compete. I have a cousin back in Connecticut who was a huge Mets fan. Yeah. And I keep asking him, how do you think you're going to compete with no pitching? He's like, I don't know. They're going to make some moves. I haven't seen them do anything last time I checked.
They're the early Phillies where it was like still Zach Eflin in the back of the rotation. Zach Eflin turned into a nice pitcher, but it was like ball goes boom and we'll figure out the rest later. And listen, if you get hot, that's great. But the second the offense goes even a little cold,
it's unreal.
You're dead.
See, that's where I think the Mets may end up, in that little lull where they can't get themselves out of it, losing games 9-7, 7-6, 7-5. Look, Edwin Diaz was good. I don't know what he's going to be this year because he came back from that surgery after he blew out his knee. Remember that?
Yeah,
in the
in the World Baseball
Classic. Blows out his knee, comes back. He was okay. He wasn't the same guy last year. So we'll see. I mean, if he could come back and be as good as he used to be, okay, so you don't have any there's no stress at the end in the back of the bullpen with him and A.J. Minder back there.
Right, but you got to get to that point, and you're going to have to get 6 innings out of somebody who is not ready to give you 6.
That's my whole point. How does that team get to the back end of their bullpen? I don't even know if it's in that team. I don't know if they have the innings to get there.
They're going to have to score 5 or 6 runs a game. And
I almost feel bad for the bullpenners up there because you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are going to get forced in and out of there because they're going to be picking up innings every week.
Yep.
We saw it with the Phillies years back. That used to happen all the time. You bring in these relievers, and they're getting worn out, so they're getting sent down all the time.
It's going to be tough. Listen, the Phillies shouldn't be afraid of anybody in the division.
Right.
And they're going to be competitive with the Mets and the Braves. But
do you think it has to do with who you beat up on?
Yes, 100%. You have to win every game against the Marlins, pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen. But, like, as close as...
I understand what you're saying.
And whoever has the most success against the Nationals, who are probably going to be like a 65 to 70 win team.
That could be it.
That might be the difference in this.
Imagine that, and you got to play them on opening day.
Hey, go get 3.
Much, much more with Jason Stark coming up on the show. This is the Philly Hot Stove on 97.5 The Fanatic and YouTube.
Andrew Salciunas. Continues on 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Welcome back in, Philly Hot Stove, 97.5 The Fanatic and YouTube tonight. We have our special guest like we do every time, our Hall of Famer and Baseball Hall of Famer from The Athletic, Jason Stark. What's up, Jason?
Ricky, Connor, how are you guys?
Good. How you doing?
Great.
Good. How's spring training?
Hi. It's good. The sun is shining, man. You don't want to hear it, but it is.
That's fine. That's fine. All right, let's start. Let's start off with something that's going hot here. How about Christopher Sanchez? What have you been hearing?
You know, I would say as I make the rounds and talk to other teams, which is really what I do all spring, the player I get asked about on the Phillies the most, more than any other, is Christopher Sanchez. It's amazing to me. I think there are a lot of known quantities on this roster, but the buzz on this guy, Ricky, is unbelievable for somebody who, until last year, was almost an afterthought, right? If you watched any of the game today, you saw it again. He's so much stronger now. He doesn't just touch 97, 98 miles an hour. He sits at 96 to 97. We've never seen that. And we've never seen this swing and miss version of him. You know, he went into today with a strikeout rate this spring of 37%. That's almost twice what it was last year. Last year he was around 20%, and he's doubled that. Starting pitchers, as you know, do not have a 37% strikeout rate. Josh Hader might have a 30% strikeout rate as a closer. Starters don't do that. But he's now got this fastball that hitters have to gear up for. You combine it with I've said this before to you, maybe the best changeup in the game, all the ground balls he gets. I think Christopher Sanchez has become a fun Cy Young long shot and a tremendous fantasy baseball pick.
Hey, that would be a great thing for an already great rotation, but with a great lineup we'll switch to, there are still questions at the top. What in the world is going on with the Phillies leadoff position? Kyle Schwarber took some time in that spot yesterday. Like, what are they going to do there, Jason?
You know, obviously they're still fiddling around with this. I think Trey Turner is going to wind up leading off more than not. I mean, they might do some switching up, left-hander versus right-hander, who knows what. But I'm sure you've heard this. Their thinking is they want a more productive Trey Turner. How do they get there? They want a Trey Turner who thinks more about getting on base and scoring runs, more along the lines of the rate that he'd always done that earlier in his career. I understand the thinking. That's obviously a goal. You've got to have a better, more productive, more consistent Trey Turner. Here's what I see. Trey Turner, before the hamstring thing last year, was hitting over 340. His on-base was over 390. His OPS was over 850s. He had 10 stolen bases, only been thrown out once. The team was playing 670 baseball, and he was hitting number 2. So tell me, when they look at the Trey Turner that they don't like, that they want to motivate, was it his place in the batting order, or was it his hamstring? I personally think it was the hamstring, and you still have that guy, and you can get that guy without moving him to number 1. A couple of other things. If he hits first and Bryce hits 2, is Trey going to be more comfortable running in front of Bryce than he was when he was hitting 2 and Bryce hit third? I don't know. Then the other question is, if Bryce hits second, is he going to come to the plate with more runners on base or fewer runners on base as opposed to hitting third? I think you know the answer. And then one final thing. You guys know I'm a fan of Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff hole. They're 58 games over 500 when he leads off, 219 and 161. Hit more leadoff homers in a season than anyone had ever hit in history, and then hit another one in the postseason. Here's the biggest thing, though. He reached base more times out of the leadoff hole last year than anyone else in the National League. So here's my question to you guys. By moving Schwarber potentially and putting Turner number 1 and putting Schwarber down at 2, 3, 4, 5, wherever he winds up, are they overthinking this? Because I think they are.
I'm with you. I'm a Schwarber leadoff guy, so I'm right there with you, Jason.
Yeah,
I know you are.
I just wonder if it's an overcorrection because they couldn't make changes to the roster with all the money they already have out there. So is this their way of trying to force change without being able to change the roster as much?
Yes.
Correct. Yeah, exactly right. And, I understand that Kyle Schwarber has a presence, if you hit him deeper in the order, that a lot of these guys wouldn't have. But I just think they will significantly miss his presence leading off the game with one of those bombs in the second deck.
Hey, Jace, I heard you got some pointed question asked by an exec on another team about red flags with Luzardo, Romano, and Kepler. What do you got on that?
Yeah, as I was saying, Ricky, one of my favorite things about spring training is roaming around, talking to people from other teams, and getting their perspective on a million things. But everybody knows I'm from Philadelphia, and they always want to talk to me, ask me stuff about the Phillies. So I talked to an executive from one team one day about the Phillies. And you should know that here's his perspective. He loves their team. He thinks they're going to win the division. But he did raise questions about those 3 guys, and they're good ones. So let's go through them. Jesus Luzardo. He loves Jesus Luzardo, and I think that's pretty much unanimous. But here's the question he asks. Why did the Marlins trade him this year, this winter? He was coming off a tough year. He wasn't healthy much of the year. Why wouldn't they have waited, let him have a big first half, and then try to get much bigger value for him at the deadline? The only reason that makes sense, at least to hit this guy, is the Marlins had to be worried about his health and whether he'd hold up. I know enough of the thinking in the Marlins organization to think there's definite truth to that. But all I can tell you is this guy's awfully dominant when he's healthy. So it'll be really interesting to watch this play out. Then Jordan Romano. First off, he's had a really good spring. Velocity is back. Slider has mostly been back to what it was. Command has been good. But the question this executive asked me was, why would Toronto non-tender a player like Jordan Romano? His thinking was, if they keep him, he probably only cost them something in the range of $7.5 million. He's a leader on their team. He's one of the most popular guys in their clubhouse. He's from Canada, Ricky. Okay, so then to replace him, they had to commit $33 million to Jeff Hoffman for 3 years, which is a lot more than they would have paid Jordan Romano. And it just makes you wonder what the Blue Jays knew. I would say if we asked the Blue Jays that, they would tell us it's more what they didn't know. He was coming off a rough year. They just weren't ready to commit to him so soon after the season ended. But, wow, what a valid question. And then Max Kepler would be the third guy that you asked about, right? And this executive thinks Kepler's a really talented player, better player than people seem to think he is. He's had a hell of a spring. But the question that he asked me was, think about it. Nobody knows him better than the Twins. It's not like they have superstars all over their outfield. He's a really good defender, good runner, has power. Why would the Twins not have even tried to keep him, right? And I think the answer is they were frustrated with how a succession of little health issues kept piling up and how often he was unavailable. But here's what I'm thinking. Doesn't that describe like half their team? So all of these are kind of wait to see who's right. But aren't they interesting questions? Something to think about?
No, they certainly are, and that's something we'll be pondering as we see how healthy these guys are going into the season or early on in the season. Now, real quick, we have about a minute left in the show, but can you give us just the Cliff Notes synopsis of the hierarchy of the NL East with 3 great teams in the division?
Yeah, I was on another show yesterday in another city, and they asked me to name my 4 number 1 seeds because it's March Madness.
Oh, love that.
And I went with the Dodgers. I went with the Dodgers and 3 teams in the NL East. Phillies, Mets, Braves. Any of them could win. They all should make the playoffs. I think the Phillies, in a world where everybody is healthy, especially the rotation, have the best roster and the best team. In a world where everybody goes through a bunch of injuries, I think the Mets have the most depth. The Braves have the biggest fluctuation between what they could be good or bad. It's going to be a fun summer, man, because these are 3 really good teams.
Jason, we always appreciate you coming on. We appreciate your Hall of Fame mind coming on. And look for your stuff in The Athletic.
I appreciate it, Rick. Connor, talk to you guys soon.
All right, take it easy.
Jason.
Jason Stark from The Athletic. Unbelievable. I mean, this guy.
I could talk to that guy all
By the
day.
way, he seriously, you could seriously sit. We could write a book in a day with just having him on and just be like a stenographer.
Yes, it's my favorite thing. I love talking to you, Rick.
I understand that. I'm right there with you. I mean, Jason is like, blah, 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 blah. You want to go on? You want to go on? You want to go on? Seriously, if we had an hour, he probably would just keep going.
He's not in the Hall of Fame for no reason.
You had to tell him 1 minute.
Yeah, I know. And guess what? Right on the minute, too, because he's a professional.
Because he knows. He probably had a stopwatch. All right, I got 1 minute. Here we go. I'm going to impress these guys.
Everyone healthy. Phillies' best roster in the National League East.
I agree.
Top 4 teams in baseball he's putting as the Dodgers, the Phillies, the Mets, and the Braves.
That wouldn't surprise me. That was pretty good. I think we were right on target.
We're sleeping on this
also.
baseball team, Rick.
I think there's a lot of people sleeping on it right now.
They'll wake up.
Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in on the Philly Hot Stove on 97.5, The Fanatic, and the YouTube channel tonight. I want to thank Connor Thomas. Great job, Connor. Great job, Austin behind the glass, Austin Jones. Jason Stark from The Athletic. He's a Hall of Famer. And by the way, coming your way next, Kevin Cooney. He's up next with Philly Sports Tonight. Have a great night, everyone.
Fanatic.